This is Subject to Approval, where we dive into the chaos, challenges and curveballs of today's business and agency world. No jargon, no waffle, just fast, fearless conversations about what's breaking and what's working in your business today. Hi there, this is Steve with the Subject to Approval podcast from Artemis. I'm rolling solo again today, so the smarter, more empathetic other side of the Artemis brain, Rebecca, has left me to my own devices. So today's topic is the only five ways to actually grow revenue. Not the techniques, not the approaches, not the methodologies, but the 5 finite ways to actually deliver growth. So today I'm not going to be talking about mindset. I'm not going to be talking about coaching. I'm not going to be talking about development. I am getting totally functional on this particular subject. So for the next 10-15 minutes, this is functional. This is what does and does not work and what can and cannot be done. So growing revenue, growth. Revenue is the lifeblood of a business. Simply, no revenue, no business. We talk about a business being like a shark. If it stops moving forward, it dies. True, but if it stops eating, it dies as well. So what I'm going to talk about is the 5 ways that you can grow revenue. And there's only 5 ways. I'm going to headline them, and I'm going to come back to each of them with some detail and then go into a little bit about how they have to interact with each other and cannot be siloed off. So let's headline off these 5. Number 1, well, you charge more to your clients. You increase the prices of your services to your clients. Yeah, obvious, but let's come back to that later on because it's not obvious as it sounds. Second, you charge for everything. So this is the flip side of scope creep, where we make sure that what we're giving, we actually receive the revenue for, and we'll talk more about that when we loop back. The third is to sell more of your existing services to your existing clients. This is the low-hanging fruit, and we'll talk about that. Number 4 is to sell new or additional services to your existing clients. Arguably, the simplest way of expanding your service range. Relationships are there, and it's shown to be 3 times easier to do this than number 5, which is delivering new services to new clients. Now, before any of you say it, but Steve, what about existing services to new clients? Well, not new services, but what about what we already do to new clients? Well, that's impossible. If it's a new client, you don't have any existing services with them. So anything you do by default is a new service. So it needs to be treated as though you're approaching a new service solution to somebody. So the immediate thing that people start talking about at this point, where we talk about new services to existing, new services to new, we talk about growth, we talk about new business, we talk about sales, we talk about revenue. Immediately people want to split this into organic or greenfield. They want to talk about farming, they want to talk about hunting, they want to talk about, well, who selling more to our existing clients is about relationships and nurturing and engagement, and that is true. But selling to new clients is something else. That's done by the new business person sitting in the corner. That's not to do with the client team, that's not to do with the creative team, that's not to do with the MD or the CEO. This is something siloed off and separate. And of course it's not, because whether it's farming or hunting, whether it's organic or greenfields, they're of course completely interrelated. It's the same services, it's the same new services, it's the same skill sets, it's the same conversations. And it's not as simple as being able to put a division between those two things. Because if we have those divisions, we have those silos, huge opportunities fall between the cracks. And let me give you an example. So I recall working with an agency in Southeast Asia who had Unilever as a client. Now, the Singapore Unilever office has 35 brands. based out of it. And the other offices, those smaller, have got local hero brands based out of those. So you've got maybe 40, 45 brands across Southeast Asia. You've got offices in Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta. Obviously, a huge potential client for anybody that's working with the MNCs and FMCGs. So the agency I was working with had one brand in one office they're working with. So they were maybe scratching into 2%, 3% less of what they could be doing. But again, even just with one services, so what, 1% of the potential is what they were doing. But because that was an existing client, that one brand made them an existing client, therefore it wasn't considered new business. It was the responsibility of the client team to drive that, who didn't necessarily have the time, the inclination, or the skill set to do so. And there was no new business time, no new business resource, and no new business focus for what was potentially millions and millions of dollars of untapped relationships and revenue. So this, the organic versus greenfield, the new biz versus hunting versus farming, I think these are distinctions without a difference. Because really, whatever you want to call it, it's about leveraging services, it's about leveraging skill sets, it's about leveraging expertise to solve your clients' problems in exchange for revenue. Okay, so let's loop back to those 5 points and we'll chat them through one at a time. Okay, so number one, increase prices. Can't increase prices, Steve. If we increase prices, the clients will riot and they'll attack us and throw chairs at us when we come into their office. Well, probably not. We often blame our prices for not getting projects. Small world, the other client, the other vendor was cheaper. Yeah, is it? Were they not? But the key question here is, I suppose, when was the last time you actually benchmarked your prices across the competitive set, across markets, across industries, across services? Do you actually know that you're charging a fair, a higher or a lower price than your customers are used to paying? Now, of course, your client, your procurement team you're talking to, they're going to tell you that your prices are the highest. They're going to tell you that you're being overpaid. They're going to tell you they don't get what their money's worth. But, the procurement teams at the big companies, they are KPI'd on lowering costs. So maybe it's not in their interest to necessarily point out if your prices could be nudged up a little bit, or if you are operating at or below the benchmark. And to be completely honest, if you have a client satisfaction score system with your key clients, and you probably do, either formally or informally, if they're not raising the point that your pricing is a problem, that you're charging too much, then you're probably undercharging. But it's not that simple. It needs to be interconnected to all the various other things we're going to talk about. So part two, charge for everything. As I mentioned, this is the profitable flip side of the margin eroding scope creep challenge. It is the extra route that gets asked for. It's the extra round of amends that gets requested. It's the additional touch point that's tapped onto the project after the scope has already been signed off. Unaddressed, this kills your margin. But addressed in an appropriately considered way, it's actually a revenue driver. If your clients were to start paying for all those extra little bits that they tuck on top, that's a significant margin. We've estimated it on some projects that there's a 15% increment of project revenue just by capturing all of those. And on a set of fixed resources or even variable resources, that can translate into a 20 or 30% increase in the margin of a particular project. That's chunky. That's the difference between, I don't know, big bonuses and small bonuses. It's a difference between big bonuses and no bonuses, or whatever you want to measure yourself by. And the acid test on this, for me, has always been, if you raise the point with the client in a respectful and and clear way that Okay, no problem. We can do blue. We can do this extra round. We can add on this touch point. No problem at all. But it's not in the original scope. If you really want this, we'll need to adjust the scope and charge you extra for it. Two things will happen. They really need it. They'll find the money and they'll pay for it. Haven't got any money? They probably didn't really need it. If they really needed it, they would have worked hard enough to get that extra bit of revenue. Point three, more existing services to existing clients. This is the simplest. This is the simplest way of growing revenue. It's essentially asking yourself, are we getting all the available work from our core clients within our core services? Are we? Probably not. If not, why? We do it already. We do it with them. They know we could do it. Presumably they're happy enough with what they're getting from us. So why aren't we getting all of it? That's a simple question. Well, what is the blocker that's stopping us getting the rest of the core work from the core clients? And it could be a number of things. It could be the fact that there's people buried away that you've never met, giving projects out to other people that don't know you could do it. There's people that for some reason, maybe you've just rubbed them up the wrong way in the past and they're not giving you the projects. Maybe they want to give it to their long-term vendor. Maybe they want to give it to their mate. I don't know. But there's no reason not to approach those. It could be, and this is a situation I've actually been in, we've talked to the client about, hey, I see you doing this, this, and this. You know we can do that. We do it for you. Their reply was, yeah, we know you can, but we're worried that you're going to get over capacity. We'd rather go to you, but we're really worried that if we give you too much work, you won't be able to deal with it, and the work will suffer, the timelines will suffer. And that really just came down to the fact that they'd only ever met a small number of our team. You know, this is an agency that had 35, 40 creatives. The client had met 2. So in the client's head, all this work was going to a couple of people who were desperately scrabbling to get it out. They couldn't conceptualize there were more. So we invited them to the office and they saw the teams, knew that capacity was never going to be a problem, and more work came in. Or take just different people to meet the clients. Just bring it as a, hey, we're doing this great work with you. These guys have been working on your projects. They really enjoy it. They just wanted to come in and meet you. And you remove that capacity blocker. Okay. Number 4, additional services to your existing clients. And again, this is low hanging. As I mentioned, it's 3 times easier to get more revenue out of your existing customers with new services than it is to try and bring in a whole new customer with a whole new service for them. But where this stumbles is across a clear set of areas. It's whose job is it to do that? As I mentioned with the Unilever example, whose job is it to go and sell to the new people within the business or new services to our existing? People are comfy with what they know, doing for who they know. There's a fear that I don't want to sell anything or talk about anything that I'm not an expert in, so it's not raised. Or I'm going to be bothering them, they'll just tell me to stay in my box. And they might. Or I'm not an expert in this topic. Once it comes up, I don't know what to say, and I don't know who the expert in my business is to bring in and have these conversations. These are all valid reasons to not do this, but they are all reasons that can very easily be overcome. They can be worked through once they're understood, once they're challenged, and once we give the skill sets and the understanding and the expertise to be able to do it. And then number 5, probably the toughest one. It's the one that people think of when they talk about growth, certainly when they hear the words new business. It's new services to new clients. This is what people get most kind of about. They feel it's cold calling, it's doorstepping people, it's talking to people that don't want to hear from you about things they don't want. And it's really not that. Yet it is probably the hardest out of the 5 that we talked about to actually get moving on. But it's also the biggest opportunity. And if it wasn't hard, the opportunity wouldn't be there. So That's why it tends to become siloed, as I mentioned, to that new business person sitting in the corner. So whilst the whole team looks at potentially expanding the scale and the services with their core clients, that person, the new business person, is left with the rest of the world to try and approach and convert and engage with. And obviously that's an impossible task. But as mentioned, those divisions don't really exist. So that the skill set of engaging with your existing clients and growing those relationships and increasing your services is the same skill set, exactly the same skill set as engaging previous contacts and opening up doors with them, or connections and opening up doors with them. Nobody's suggesting cold calls. It just doesn't work. But it's about utilizing a network that you've built up organically, probably accidentally, and you're not even aware of. It's utilizing the network of contacts, of friends, of colleagues, of those warm relationships that are still new, but you already have that warm opening with to move into. And again, there is skills and there's a set of behaviors that we can develop, that's like a muscle that we can work on to make that a lot easier and a lot more effective in terms of time spent to delivering it. So 5 ways, not the methods, not the behaviors, not the key skills to do those 5 ways, but the 5 different ways that you can grow revenue for a business. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of people are doing a lot of these, but often in any organization or any agency, no matter how big or small, these things are siloed with as much falling through the gaps as is actually being dealt with. When we talk about pricing, that can't be done in isolation. Everybody talks. You can't raise it here and not here. They'll know that they're getting a better or worse deal with them. If we want to start charging for all the deliverables, that can't be done just one day. It needs to be done in a context of a conversation, bringing in senior people to couch that in the understanding about why we're doing it. And again, across teams. If we're talking about existing services, then there's skill sets, there's mindsets. If we're looking at developing new or additional services, we need to make sure we're not stepping on the toes of somebody else in our organization that might be having those conversations. We can't swap out our existing services for something that delivers the same solution but cheaper. Well, we can, but should we? Unless it's part of a clear and understood value add plan that you're working on with the client, we need to look at that in a holistic sense. And again, as I said, well, whose role is new biz? Whose role is this growth? It's not my job. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, reality is it's pretty much everyone's job to be helping that business grow, to be helping that shark move forward. There needs to be a single, cohesive growth strategy and a clear and detailed plan to execute that. But to make that happen, you need to make sure that your teams of whatever level have had the training and the coaching, develop the skills, the mindset, the expertise to actually deliver. So that's my 15-20 minutes on the functional aspects of growth. It's nearly lunchtime on a Tuesday. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon in my experience, best time for growth conversation. Mondays, everyone's a bit, Wednesday, there's a kind of sinking feeling that it's halfway through the week and you haven't achieved as much as you wanted to. And Friday afternoon, frankly, everyone's mind's halfway out the door. So Tuesday morning, Thursday afternoon, the best time for new business and growth conversations. And before lunch is good. My brain is telling me it's hungry. My brain is looking for some antelopes. I'm in a farming and a hunting frame of mind right now, rather than, kind of cozy in the middle of the afternoon. So Tuesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, perfect times to do this. Artemis, practical, pragmatic, results-orientated training and coaching. Love to talk to you, love to talk to your team about how we step change the capacity and the capabilities to deliver significant growth for your agency. Chat soon. Work can be tough, but you don't have to figure it out alone. We're here to help for coaching, workshops, or just a smart second opinion. Let's talk. Contact hello@artemisapac.com. We're Artemis, and we get it.